Okay, so at this stage, we have set up our system correctly, we've designed our schematic, and we've even gone over some slightly more advanced um, routing techniques in our last video, where we introduced a really honkin' giganto resistor that we could route traces under in case we needed to do that. And we showed how we might do a via, which connects one side of the board to the other so that we can introduce parts on both sides of a two-layer board should we want to. And I mentioned that these things are things that are very easy to do if you order a board from a board house, and they become pretty hard to do on our Carvera, but we do have ways of making vias. You'll just have to do a little bit of trial and error and probably drill a pretty big hole that looks more like these holes in order to do a via for the Carvera. But anyway, so we've covered some pretty advanced techniques. This technique of using a large resistor, a 0 ohm resistor to route traces through, you will probably use. So make sure you watch that video if you didn't quite catch it. And we are now ready, after routing our traces and doing some fun stuff, for the final two steps. The first is making our board outline, and the second is then filling our ground plane and connecting it everywhere. So let's go ahead and work on our board outline. So in order to do that, we can just go to our edge cut uh, layer, and we can literally use these tools to draw a board outline. So, no harm in just drawing. There's some lines. Let's try some curves. How does that work? Not great. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So you can draw some curves. We need to make everything a closed shape. Good luck doing this kind of a thing. Um, yeah. So I guess maybe let's try this. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Horrible. It looks terrible. So we can draw this kind of a thing. As long as we end up with a closed shape, we should be okay. So let's see if it will recognize that as a closed shape. I'm not totally sure. So let's go to our 3D viewer and look at that. We have a crazy board outline that we have now defined that is legitimate, although one of our parts is now off. So it's going to complain, as it should, if we try to finish this design. So that's one, we can draw it with lines and curves. We could draw it with this little polygon tool. And you double click to close the shape. And again, if we look at that in our 3D viewer, you can see we've made our shape. And then the most advanced technique is to actually try to use something like Fusion. So we can come into Fusion, we can add a sketch, and I think I sort of demonstrated in class. Let's try to do like a pretty little fish of some kind. So I'm just gonna draw, draw, draw. Oh no, my bad. Here we go. Here's our fish. Let's hit the check mark. Uh, we'll do some straight lines for a little fin kind of a vibe. Beautiful. Now it's closed. Maybe we do a big mouth, and then I'm just going to go in and trim the pieces that we don't need. And look, we have a shape for like a fish. Took me 2 seconds. And so what am I going to do? I'm going to export a DXF of this. I think it should be fine. Millimeters, okay. Who even knows what we're getting out of this? We'll call it fish and save it in downloads. And then we can come over here and if we want to, I'm going to undo my previous board outline, and I'm going to go ahead and go File, Import Graphics. File, Import Graphics. I'm going to pick my DXF of the fish. And then we can have our import scale default units, which I set millimeters, so should probably make sure that's right. And we're going to make sure that the layer is the edge cuts layer. And then we're going to hit OK. We're going to see our fish is gigantic, so lovely. We might want to change the scale, or we might want to pay attention to the actual size when we do our sketch. So your mileage may vary. Of course, as I mentioned in class, if we then now view this in the 3D view, it does not work. And that's because this is in a closed shape and it has barfed a little bit on these dotted lines. But luckily for us, And we're also viewing it we're flipped. We're looking at the bottom, so that may throw us off a little bit too. Let's look at it in the right direction. And so now we will go use this lovely thing in tools called cleanup graphics. And you're going to have to play with these things to like try to get it to work for you. But this fixed discontinuities is probably the big one. And let's see if we just hit it, nothing happens. So let's go try again. Cleanup graphics. Let's try fix discontinuities. Let's do 20 millimeters. Okay, now it's worked. Let's look at 3D viewer. Look at that. We have our shape. So that's how you create a closed shape outline and design one as a DXF and import it.